open to the public till then, all right? I say that at the beginning of the tour now, because at the end of the tour about 10 people will ask me that question. Any good London tour guide knows where all the free loos are in London. Oh yes. And I have been a London tour guide for 21 years now. But it's better than having a real job. It's a lot more fun. So even though this is a Christmas lights tour, we will be seeing some of London's most famous landmarks and sites, and I'll be telling you all about them as well. Hope you all like history, because I do. This is all part of the South Bank Arts Centre here on the left, and it was built for the Festival of Britain in 1951. It's the largest arts complex in Europe. There's so many nice, interesting and creative things that go on here. And the reason that this part of London is called Waterloo is because it's named after the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. That was the end of the Napoleonic Wars. That was the last time Britain was at war with France. And then many years later, ABBA wrote a song about it. ABBA's big hit Waterloo is 50 years old, because ABBA won the Eurovision Song Contest with Waterloo in 1974. I know. Just look here to the left. This beautiful red brick building is no longer a hospital for women and children. It's just this building dates from 1816, and we call these ghost sites. They're part of the heritage and the history of the building. So even when a building like this has a different use now, they don't remove the signs. So this building is part of King's College, University London now. London has 43 universities. Doesn't that sound like a lot? On the roundabout here is the London IMAX cinema. And if you look over the railway line on the left, you'll see the beautiful front of Waterloo railway station. It's actually a war memorial to the railway workers who fought in the First World War. The statue on the top of it is Britannia. Now when we go through these lights here, we're going to pass this first apartment building that's ahead of us, and then there's going to be a gap between the two buildings, and you will see Big Ben framed by the London Eye. It makes an excellent photograph. What I suggest you do, when you see the London Eye in your screen, zoom in on it. Now it's going to be before the yellow staircase, which you'll see here on the left, and our lovely driver will slow down so you can all enjoy the view or take a picture. Keep looking left. Keep looking. We might need to wait for this number 68 bus to move off, but that's okay. Now then, we might just wait for this bus to pull away. And this view can't have been intentional. Thank you very much, Si, that's great. Normally they light up the London Eye in pink most days, but it's lilac this evening, as you can see. Now you might also like to take some photos in both directions as we cross over Waterloo Bridge here. So many Londoners, we still call this bridge the Ladies' Bridge of London, because Waterloo Bridge was built by the Women's Land Army in 1942, when all the men were fighting in the Second World War. So the view to the left-hand side, that's the city of Westminster. Westminster is actually the younger part of London. It's just over 1,000 years old. Yeah, that's a young bit of London. And then the view to the right is the oldest part of London, the City of London, which is nearly 2,000 years old. It was founded by the Romans. So the Romans invaded Britain in 43 AD, and then 7 years later in 50 AD, they founded a settlement over there, and they called it Londinium. You can see the dome of our beautiful St. Paul's Cathedral from here. And just so you understand the geography of London, to the right is east. If we carried along the River Thames for 30 miles, we'd come out at the sea. So the River Thames is a tidal river, it's a bracken river. And it was the Romans that first named the river. They called it Tamesis, which meant elder or wise man. And you know how we still say Old Father Thames? It goes all that way back in our history. Is that amazing? Now to the right of us is Somerset House. It was originally built to be the Earl of Somerset's palatial London mansion. The oldest part of this building dates from 1776, but they've been altering it up until the 1850s. Now look, they've got the ice skating rink open here. They've got a beautiful outdoor internal courtyard at Somerset House. That's where the rink is. So we're going to turn left at these lights, and then we are going to see the first Christmas lights on this tour. Now, on the other side of Strand over there is Covent Garden. Make sure you come to Covent Garden whilst you're in London. I think it's the loveliest part of central London. And it is so Christmassy and beautiful. Beep, beep! Beep! Beep, beep! Wow! See, in Germanic languages, Strand means beach. The River Thames used to come up to here. Yeah. Now, I'm going to ask Slide to slow down at the next lights when we go through them, because here on the left is the beautiful Savoy Hotel, so you might like to take a picture of it. The Savoy was London's first 5-star hotel that opened in 1889. Stars of the silver screen would stay here, have dinner and parties. People like Rita Hayworth and Clark Gable and Fred Astaire and Frank Sinatra, those kind of people. You'll see it's absolutely beautiful, the front of it. And this is the only street in Britain where cars drive on the right-hand side of the road. Yeah. Look left, look how stunning it is. So you'll see lots of theatres around here. Covent Garden is all part of London's theatre district. And there's always around 40 different shows to choose from in London. See, all of the performances in London are at the same time at 7:30, so everybody will be watching the shows now. See, to the right here at the Adelphi is the Back to the Future musical for a bit of 80s nostalgia. Andrew Lloyd Webber owns that theatre. He owns 6 theatres in London. So we're making our way down to Trafalgar Square, then we'll be heading up to Piccadilly and then going up and see all the beautiful lights in Regent Street. This street, the Strand, is an ancient street of London. This street is 1,000 years old. Amazing. Oh, bless. Here on the right is a soup kitchen for the homeless of London. So a different food charity comes here every evening so that the homeless have some variety. Oh, they're getting curry tonight. That'd be nice in the morning. To the right of us, the glass-fronted building with the lanterns. That's Coops. That's the King's Bank, and that's where millionaires and billionaires do their banking. Then when we move forward, you'll see some nice Christmas lights here on the left on Villiers Street. This is a really lovely street full of little restaurants and pubs. And the author, Rudyard Kipling, he wrote Jungle Book, lives here. You'll see the light up Christmas tree here in the forecourt of Charing Cross Station. Have a look on the left. So Charing was a curve in the river in Anglo-Saxon. The church to the right of us is St. Martin in the Fields, and they do beautiful candlelit classical concerts all year round there, but then at this time of the year, carol concerts. Really lovely in there. And then you can see our National Gallery to the right. It's so amazing, isn't it, how all of our museums and galleries in London are free. The idea behind it is that art and culture should be accessible to everyone because it enriches our lives, of course makes us cultured. Trafalgar Square and Nelson's Column all commemorate the Battle of Trafalgar that was in 1805. Now, Lord Horatio Admiral Nelson, up there on his column, had led the Royal Navy to victory against our enemies, the French and Spanish, and then Nelson was killed at the Battle of Trafalgar by a French sniper with a musket. He's honoured and remembered here because he's considered to be Britain's greatest ever military hero. And then as we go around the roundabout, here on the right, this is King Charles I. This is the centre of London, where all distances to and from London are measured. Now, the Christmas tree on Trafalgar Square is always a gift to the people of London from the people of Norway. And they've been gifting us a tree since 1947, because during the Second World War, the Norwegian royal family were given sanctuary and lived in London. They weren't roughing it, they were staying at the Ritz Hotel. This is a 60-foot tree, and that tree's about 80 years old. And in Scandinavian countries, they often hang their Christmas lights vertically. So that's why they are hung vertically on this tree. Now, have we got any Canadians with us this evening? Hello? No? Okay. Just this is Canada House on the right, the Canadian High Commission of London. The High Commission serves the same purpose as an embassy for countries that are part of the British Commonwealth. And where Bus Stop Bay is, here on the right, behind it, that doorway is Oceanic House. That's where people in London bought their tickets for the Titanic. There's a statue on the right, that's King George III. Now we're turning into Pall Mall. These are all private members clubs along here. Have we got anyone from the US of A on board? You guys. So we British, we call these clubs gentlemen's clubs. But our gentlemen's clubs over here are not naughty like your gentlemen's clubs. You know what I mean? This one on the left is the Institute of Directors. You have to be like a chairman or CEO to be a member. Now let's have a look. So this is the memorial to the Crimea War. The statue of the woman is Florence Nightingale. Isn't this such a beautiful tree here? Oh look, there's Father Christmas. He's lost a bit of weight since last year. Now for you guys at the back of the bus, what I suggest you do is when we go under the first angel, look behind you and take a horizontal photo of it. It makes the ideal Facebook banner. If you go under it, these angels are called the Spirit of Christmas. When we go up the main part of Regent Street, we'll see more of these similar ones. And then when all these people at once, do any of you want to come up? We're in slow moving traffic. So these angels are called the Spirit of Christmas, and we've been using these ones since 2015, but they're so beautiful. I don't mind seeing them every year.
I saw these, but we don't do all that other part.
But they're in coffee cheeks.
I've asked Father Christmas for a Smeg fridge. And he doesn't have to worry about it fitting down my chimney. I have a ground floor flat, you can just leave it at the front door. Won't mind at all. Now, when we move forward, these next lights just here on the left are more beautiful angels on this lovely street, Jermyn Street. Jermyn Street would always be where men would go to buy their shirts and ties. So if you were an English gentleman, you'd go to Savile Row in Mayfair to have your suit made. Then you come to Jermyn Street for your shirt and tie. And then the next street along, which is so beautiful, St James's Street, we've got the oldest hat shop in the world. It's such a special place. It's called Lock & Co. And it's 370 years old. And that's where you buy your hats. Yeah. During the pandemic, I was doing walking tours around here for my groups of friends of mine when we were allowed out. And on the hat shop, they had hand-painted outside the shop, please stay 8 bowler hats apart. That's so sweet. We're here. Get ready here on the left. So we are up at Piccadilly Circus. It's always busy here. British people use Piccadilly Circus as an expression to describe other busy places we visit. And there's never been clowns, jugglers or a big top here or anything like that. It's just simply that circus is the Latin for circle. And one of London's most famous statues is here, and it's quite small really. The statue of Immerse that was erected here in 1893. To the right of us, Lily White's is the biggest sports shop in London. So we're going to head up to the main part of Regent Street now. This is Lower Regent Street. We'll drive through Piccadilly Circus later on the tour. All of the bodies are in a different position. Aren't they just so stunning? I think Regent Street is the most beautiful shopping street in London. So Regent Street gets its name from the Prince Regent. It opened in 1819 and it was designed by the Prince Regent's chief architect, John Nash. John Nash also designed the front of Buckingham Palace and Marble Arch. So the Prince Regent, he was the eldest son of poor old mad King George III. So George III had 5 bouts of madness in his life. And the last time the king was so mentally ill, he told several people on several occasions in the royal court that he thought he was a tree. People started to gossip about the king. It got back to the government, and that's when the government thought, oh dear, we've got to do something about this. So the government stepped in and they appointed the eldest son of George III, who's known as the Prince Regent because he's the acting king. And then when George III died in 1820, then the Prince Regent became King George IV. Now George IV, he was the Georgie, Porgy, Pudding and Pie, kissed the girls and made them cry. When his father, George III, was alive, George III hated his eldest son, and he didn't want his eldest son to be the king. But you cannot change the act of succession. And what was frustrating for George III, he had 15 children, and he had other sons who would have had much better character to be the monarch, but you cannot change the act of succession. So the Prince Regent, he had this street commissioned to be built for a few reasons. One, it was part of a long royal ceremonial route. But also, he wanted this to be the most beautiful shopping street in Europe, to rival any shopping street in Paris. Because this was just after the Napoleonic Wars and there was still a lot of rivalry between Britain and France and London and Paris. Trust me, London was much better. But also Regent Street was built to be a boundary as well, because to the right of us is Soho, and at that time that would have been a very poor and deprived part of London. And just a bit further up on the left it is a Mayfair, which has always been a very, very wealthy and exclusive part of London. And you may have noticed that quite a lot of buildings in London are made of this white stone, including again the front of Buckingham Palace and St Paul's Cathedral, Somerset House that we just saw. And it's called Portland stone. It's quarried in Dorset in the West Country. And when it rains, there is a chemical reaction with the minerals in the stone, and it helps wash away and clean away more of the dirt. But I'm on every London history forum, Facebook group I can possibly find. And sometimes people post photos of old London, even as recently as the 1970s, when there was more industrial coal use and more diesel vehicles, and people still had coal fires in their homes, and all these Portland stone buildings were just full of soot, and the rain wouldn't wash it away. When Charles and Diana got married in 1981 at St Paul's Cathedral, they only had 9 months to clean St Paul's Cathedral and make it look presentable, but they managed it. It was actually Regent Street that started this tradition of doing public Christmas lights displays. Back in 1954 it all began.
When did they start?
Takes them a long time. It actually takes them about 5 or 6 weeks to put them up. So you see the cherry pickers parked up because they're only allowed to close the road for like 3 hours. And of course they have to put them one up at a time and make sure they're very secure, health and safety. So yeah, it takes weeks to get them all up. Yeah, so because they're only allowed to close the road between like 1 a.m. and 5 a.m. or something. So yeah. So there are more than 700,000 little fairy light bulbs. Remember the old days when you get your Christmas lights out and one of the bulbs would be blown? Oh, everyone remembers that. Oh, and you'd have to check them all. Modern lights are not like that anymore. It doesn't matter if one of the bulbs is deficient, they still turn on. That was always my father's job. Yeah. So I'm going to ask you to kindly turn off the heater for 30 minutes, please. So here we are, there's Burberry. This is where the king still buries his rain max. See, Burberry have got a royal warrant, but they haven't got it on the outside of their building. Don't know why. See, so a royal warrant is if you have supplied goods or services to a different senior member of the royal family for 5 years. It could be anything. You could be a wine merchant, you could be a dry cleaner, it could be anything. So after 5 years of good service, then they will allow you to display their coat of arms on your packaging, on your website, on your bags, and on your buildings. And they're very coveted, as you can probably imagine. Harrods had all their royal warrants taken away in 1997 because Mohammed Al Fayed owned Harrods at the time, and obviously in his grief of losing his son and Diana, he made lots and lots of accusations against the royal family. So the royal family just took all the royal warrants away. Because you used to literally see them on the corner of Harrods, from the top of the building all the way down. Just removed them all. Sorry. And the only other time I know of a royal warrant being taken away was, hang on, we're not at Hamleys yet, no. So Queen Elizabeth II Her undergarments were made in a sort of lingerie shop in Mayfair, not far from here, called Rigby and Pellier. And then one of the directors of Rigby and Pellier wrote a book about the business, and in it he accidentally revealed some private details about the Queen's underwear. One was not amused, and the royal warrants were taken away as well. It's alright, there are quite a lot of traffic lights on Regent Street. Such a good view of all the architecture, don't you, from this level and being on these open buses.
Yeah, above.
So we're nearly at Hamleys now. So here on the right with the red awnings is Hamleys, and they claim to be the oldest toy shop in the world, and they might be, because Hamleys opened in 1760. 7 floors of heaven for children. I can remember the excitement of coming to Hamleys when I was a child. They've got a whole floor of Harry Potter merchandise there now. Hamleys was bombed 6 times in the Second World War, but managed to remain open. They have such nice staff who work in Hamleys. They mainly employ young drama students. Oh, and they're so enthusiastic all day, singing and dancing. It's so nice, and you've got to love children, obviously, to work at Hamleys. Now have a look to the left for some Christmas lights, and a quick glimpse to the right. You can see through Carnaby Street a little bit. I like these ones on the left. They're very delicate, aren't they? See the mistletoe. If you're ever in this area, do walk through Carnaby Street. It's all pedestrianised, so that's why we can't drive through there. And then on the right here is Great Marlborough Street, and you'll see Liberty here, which is one of London's most beautiful department stores. It's all made of ship's timbers, both inside and out. Everything in there is just lovely. This is the flagship Apple store on the left. Look at their lovely windows.
Yeah, we didn't go down further.
So we're nearly at Oxford Circus now, and we're going to turn left into Oxford Street. Just a word of warning, if you're ever coming up here, I personally always try and avoid Oxford Circus tube station, because they're always closing this tube station due to overcrowding. But there are 4 tube stations on Oxford Street because it's 1.5 miles long. I usually go to Bond Street. I prefer to go that one. On the new Elizabeth line. Oh, it's so brilliant. jaywalking is not an offence in this country. That's why you see everyone jaywalking. I had no idea that you couldn't jaywalk in other countries, let alone get fined for it. Yeah, and but also for you Americans on board, just so you know, you can drink alcohol in the street here. Yes, you can. London has got the oldest and largest underground railway system in the world. The oldest part of the London Underground opened in 1863, 161 years ago. Just imagine, there'd have been Victorian ladies in those big dresses and corsets getting on the tube. If you ever look at the London Underground map, the pink line, the Hammersmith and City line, the part of it between Paddington and Farringdon, that's the oldest part of the tube, 1863. Amazing. Oxford Street is expected to make £1 billion of sales this festive season. And Oxford Street only started doing their displays of Christmas lights in 1959. Now, for some dreadfully bad planning going on, they've dug up part of Oxford Street, because normally you would go all the way down and go to Selfridges. But the good news is we go down Bond Street instead, which is like London's equivalent of Fifth Avenue in New York. So we just see a bit more of Mayfair, and we actually get to see Christmas lights that we wouldn't normally get to see. But what is a big shame for me is my grandmother, my father's mother, was an artist model, and there were 3 statues of her in London. And if we had driven past Selfridges, we could have shown you this big statue of my grandma at the main entrance. If you could ever come up here another time, go and have a look at it. There's a big statue of a woman at the main entrance of Selfridges, and it's called the Queen of Time from 1931, and that is my paternal grandma. Yeah. There are 2 other statues of her in London as well. One's on Southwark Bridge, and my grandma's on the Bank of England. And you can just about see her on all of our money. You get a better look at her on a £50 note. Now this is Bond Street. Dun dun dun. You see how they are Chanel bottles. You know, it's a very tight corner here, particularly when there's a van double parked there. Beep beep! So my grandma and her sisters, her family, they lived at the other end of Oxford Street near the Tottenham Court Road. And when my grandmother was 12 years old, she was with her 2 sisters who were 11 and 13. And this artist and tutor from St Martin's Art College was looking over at them, thought how beautiful they were, went to speak to them, approached their mother, changed the fortunes of the family. And my grandma continued modelling until she was 65. And then 7 years ago, this American author wrote a book about my grandma and her sisters. It's called The Women Who Inspired London Art. I bought my copy on Amazon.
What was your grandmother's?
Her name was Leopoldine Avico, because my grandma's father was Italian and her mother was French. I thought... So we're in Mayfair now. Mayfair gets its name because there was a fair, a festival that would take place here in early May, celebrating the start of the harvest season. And you know how we have our May Day bank holiday? That is the originator of that, was the original Mayfair. Oh, it's tight, isn't it? Now we're going to go past one of London's most beautiful hotels here, Claridge's. This is pure class. Here on the left. the main entrance on this side. Look, isn't it look so festive and beautiful? You can almost like smell the money, can't you, here in Mayfair? Because when you're playing Monopoly, Mayfair's got the highest value. Oh, look. Both Jimi Hendrix and Handel lived on this street, Brook Street. I'm just approaching Grosvenor Square now. You'll see the name Grosvenor all over London. So Hugh Grosvenor, he is the Duke of Westminster. He owns 350 acres of London. He's worth an estimated £9 billion, and he's only 32 years old. He got married this year. It was the Society Wedding of the Year, and his best man was Prince William. So this is Grosvenor Square. So these little white lights are all little white light up roses, and this is a charity garden for the Royal Marsden Cancer Charity. So if you ever want to come here, all you have to do is make a donation. Isn't it gorgeous? And then for the Americans on board, here on the right, this is the London Memorial to the 9/11 tragedy. Because on the other side, that building on the other side, that used to be the US Embassy in London. Now you guys have a brand new, super shiny, $2 billion new embassy in London, in Battersea near Nine Elms. It's even got a moat. You know, like a castle, it's got a moat. You've got the only embassy in London that has a moat.
That's great.
So just up ahead of us, where we see the Christmas tree ahead, you might like to take a picture looking to the right when we get there, because this is the Connaught Hotel, and Gordon Ramsay has one of his Michelin star restaurants here. Oh, look at the old classic car. Oh, look at that. See, the King and Camilla travel in one of those vintage Rolls Royce from the 1950s. And this is Mount Street. As we turn into it, have a look up here to the right. The architecture here is just so stunning. This was all built, opened in 1881. Audrey Hepburn used to have an apartment in Mount Street, and Winston Churchill lived here as well. Beautiful street. And such tasteful Christmas lights here in Mayfair, of course. And then this is Berkeley Square. This one. See, these would all have been originally private garden squares. Because in central London, none of these old houses were ever built with a private garden at the back of the house. Because all of these old houses would have had a mews at the back of them. And the mews is where you kept your horse and carriage. So that's why these were all originally private gardens. Some of them are still private, but this one is public. Now, see where it's lit up in blue on the right? That's a famous nightclub, Annabelle's, where royalty and the rich and famous go clubbing together. Now when we go around the other side, you'll be able to look across now. You can see it's a snow globe with this peacock at the front of it. They always have something different every year and always decorate the front of their whole building. These people on black tie, Christmas dues, can always rely on a Black London taxi to stop somewhere inconvenient, but just the way it is. And you'll see all the exclusive car showrooms as we drive along here, Berkeley Street. See here we've got Bentley, and next to it we have the Ferrari showroom. But look here over to the right, isn't that absolutely stunning at the front of Annabelle's? These are very old trees here. They were planted in 1789. London has 10 million trees. And here on the left with the green awning, Sexy Fish. This is where celebrities like Victoria and David Beckham go for dinner. Sometimes you see paparazzi photographers outside this restaurant. You know, when the American celebs, like people like Rihanna or Beyonce, I bet you Taylor Swift has eaten there. I've seen loads of celebrities in London, and sometimes you see royal convoys drive past you. Well, I might as well tell you this story. I haven't told this for ages. So it was one day about 8 years ago, and I was on the Mall. This is the road that goes from Buckingham Palace to Trafalgar Square. I was doing some research for my walking tours. It was like a Tuesday afternoon in November, and there was hardly anyone around. Anyway, they send the police motorbikes ahead, and they stop the traffic. And when it's a wide road, they also stop the pedestrians. Anyway, as the royal convoy got closer to me, I suddenly realised it's the Queen, and she's going to drive right past me. And I got terribly excited. So I was waving like a complete lunatic. I was like waving with my whole body, and it did work, because as the Queen drove past me, she saw me, we made eye contact. She smiled and nodded at me and gave me the famous royal wave back. Yay! Yeah, so if you're in London and you see a royal convoy go past you, now you know what to do, okay? Because it worked for me, and hopefully it will work for you too. So here's the famous Ritz Hotel ahead of us. The Ritz opened in 1906, and it was founded by a Swiss Frenchman, Cesar Ritz. The royal family always have their birthday parties at the Ritz, and this is the place in London to go for afternoon tea. Now there's going to be some photo opportunities coming up on the left in just a minute, but I just wanted to see on the right, see the building with the lanterns? See that? That's the private members club where the king is a member. That's where the king meets up with his chums. Because you know, when you're very posh like the king, you don't have friends, you have chums. And the king only lives at the bottom of the road, because this is St James's Street, where that beautiful hat shop that I was talking about earlier is. And at the end of St James's Street is St James's Palace, and next door to that is Clarence House. But Clarence House you can't really see. It was built to be a private royal residence in London. You can see St James's Palace if you walk to the end of the road. That's actually the most senior royal palace in London. It's not Buckingham Palace. And St James's Palace was built by Henry VIII for his second wife, Anne Boleyn. Anne Boleyn never got to see it completed, because on the 19th of May 1536, obviously had her head chopped off at the Tower of London. And then they finished the palace about 6 months later. Really nice. Now, coming up on the left, you'll see Bond Street, but keep looking left and get your cameras ready. And I'm going to ask our lovely driver to slow down. There's Bond Street on the left again. But look at this beautiful little shopping mall here. This is the Burlington Arcade. It opened in 1819. Look how special this place is. See? Look, isn't it beautiful? And then, quick look to the right. Look at this little one. Look at the Piccadilly Arcade. And then I'm going to ask Sly to be really safe. Here on the right, this is the most beautiful, special, traditional shop in London, Fortnum and Mason. This shop is 3 years older than St Paul's Cathedral. It opened in 1707. This is the royal family supermarket. They even have their own exclusive blend of royal tea that they serve at garden parties at Buckingham Palace. They invented the Scotch egg. Queen Victoria used to send Florence Nightingale a hamper from Fortnum and Mason. And if you work for the royal family in any capacity, you could be a maid at Balmoral or a gardener at Buckingham Palace. Everyone gets a hamper from Fortnum and Mason. Look at their windows. Oh, I know. And then the advent calendar on the upper floors. Honestly, you need to come to this shop. There's no other shop like this in the whole world. It's very sophisticated, it's traditional. Oh, it's just so splendid. This church on the right was designed by Christopher Wren. This is St James's Piccadilly. Christopher Wren is most famous for designing St Paul's Cathedral. He designed lots of other churches as well. Now there's this beautiful street here on the left when we go through the lights and past the Dilly. This is Eyre Street, and it's a cut through to Regent Street. And if you look through, it goes across to Soho. This was in Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. See? Harry was flying through there in his broomstick. You know, you guys really made the good decision doing the later tour. You did, because the traffic earlier was really atrocious. Yeah. So we're back at Piccadilly Circus now. When we go through these lights, you might like to take another picture looking here down to the right. This is Lower Regent Street that we came up earlier on the tour. To the right. So we're going to go down the Haymarket. Ahead of us is Shaftesbury Avenue. There are lots of theatres up there. And if you want to go to Chinatown, it's either up there on the right or straight on the left. You'll see all the Chinese paper lanterns. Chinatown is really cool. Directly ahead of us is Leicester Square. There's a big Christmas market on here. And then just on the other side of Leicester Square is Covent Garden. And now we're turning into Haymarket. So there would have been a market selling hay here when people had horses. Obviously they need quite a lot of hay. Because you do still see the police on horses in central London on a regular basis, particularly at the weekends, when we have protests on a Saturday and Sunday. And we have the army on horses as well in London, the household cavalry regiments. Later when we go down Whitehall, I'll show you where you can see them, but they're just there in the daytime. On the left is the lovely Theatre Royal Haymarket. That was designed by John Nash as well, who designed Regent Street. And on the right, His Majesty's Theatre. Phantom of the Opera has been showing in London since 1986. Yeah. Sly, can you hear me? Sly, when we get to Parliament Square, please drive around the square for me. Thank you. Because there's so much there, and you can get some really nice pictures of Big Ben as we drive around Parliament Square. Nelson's Column is 180 feet high, and Nelson is looking down to this direction towards Portsmouth, where his ship, the HMS Victory, is still moored. And the lions at the base of Nelson's Column, these are some of London's most famous and recognisable statues. They were designed by a fantastic artist and sculptor called Edwin Landseer, and he was a favourite artist of Queen Victoria and Prince Albert. And you will find his paintings hanging on the walls of all the royal palaces and residences. Now, if you like art, you might like to go to our National Gallery. So it's free, and there are 3,000 paintings on display in there by very eminent artists as well, like Rembrandt, Rubens, Monet, Van Gogh, Van Dyck, and many others. Also, I'd recommend going to the National Portrait Gallery, which is just up to the left, just at the back of the National Gallery. And the National Portrait Gallery has got the largest collection of portraits of any other art gallery in the world. Really lovely there. And now we're going to head down Whitehall. You'll see Big Ben if you look to the right. So Whitehall gets its name from Whitehall Palace, which used to be the largest palace we've ever had in London. But unfortunately, most of it burnt down in 1698. Now we use Whitehall as a generic term for the government, because as we drive down here, all the beautiful buildings, again made of the Portland stone, were all government buildings and departments. Some of them have been sold off now and have been turned into 5-star hotels. On the left is Great Scotland Yard, which is where the police force were initially based when they were founded in 1829. When they moved to the new site, they just called themselves New Scotland Yard. So, and these are all statues of former commanders of the army. So over here to the right is Horse Guards, and if you ever want to come and see the soldiers on horses, they are here every day from 10 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon. They've got their own changing of the guard in their little yard there at 11:30. Now here on the left, that's Banqueting House. That's the only surviving part of Whitehall Palace. That dates from 1622. And in there is an incredible ceiling painting by the artist Rubens. Now I want to show you Downing Street. Okay, so when we pass the Women of World War II Memorial here in the middle of the road, there on the right with the 2 lanterns and the black gates is Downing Street. Now as we pass it, if you look through, you'll see the Christmas tree on the right, and that is outside the door, the famous number 10. And all of our Prime Ministers have lived and worked at 10 Downing Street since 1735. You'll see the Christmas tree there. And then here in the middle of the road, this is very important to British people, this is the cenotaph, our National War Memorial. And cenotaph means empty tomb in Greek. Then on the right is the Foreign Office building. And then the next one on the right is the Treasury building. Underneath this building are the Churchill War Rooms. This is a fantastic museum. If you're interested in Winston Churchill and the Second World War, I highly recommend it. And it's not just a museum, it's the real cabinet war rooms where they ran the War Office in the Second World War. Now, we're going to drive around Parliament Square, and I'm going to save telling you about Big Ben till last, because I've got so much, and then as we come round again. But I just want to show you this part of Parliament. Now, most of the Houses of Parliament were built between 1834 and 1860. So if you look to the left, see this part of the building with the sloping roof? This is Westminster Hall, part of the old Palace of Westminster. It's 925 years old. And it was in here that Queen Elizabeth II's body was laid in state for 4 days so people could pay their respects to her before her funeral at the Abbey. On the other side of Parliament is the Victoria Tower. This is St Margaret's Church on the left. That's 500 years old, and Winston Churchill got married in there. Now here is Westminster Abbey. Now this is considered to be the most important church in Britain. 40 of our kings and queens have been crowned here at the coronation ceremony. There are also 17 monarchs buried in the royal chamber in here, including Queen Elizabeth I and Mary Queen of Scots, who never met in real life. And there's lots and lots of other famous people buried in here as well, like Charles Darwin, Charles Dickens, Sir Isaac Newton, and many others. Now, for any Americans on board, on the left is Abraham Lincoln. So these are all statues of politicians and statesmen around here. Now notice how Abraham Lincoln is standing up in front of his chair and he's not wearing a hat. None of these statues are wearing hats. And when most of these politicians are Victorian, everybody would have worn a hat. There's a reason for this. This is a royal ceremonial route, and everyone must stand in the presence of the monarch, and you must remove your hat. Yeah. Now I'll tell you about Big Ben. So Big Ben dates from 1859, and it is called the Elizabeth Tower now. But don't worry, we still all call it Big Ben, because Big Ben is still the name of the massive bell that's up in that clock tower, and it weighs 13.5 tons, and the bell was designed by a man called Benjamin Hall. So he was the Ben that designed the big bell. Now Big Ben has probably never looked more beautiful than it does at the moment, because it had this 5-year restoration project onto it. They got all the scaffolding down in March 2022, and it ended up costing the British taxpayer £86 million. Before I just want, well, of course, out of all these statues of politicians, Winston Churchill had to have the plinth at the front, and Churchill is out looking over here at Parliament. He was an MP here for 64 years and our Prime Minister twice. Now look, we're not going to be here on the hour to hear Big Ben doing its famous chime. So, shall we all do it together? I'll start, you can join in if you want to. Ready? Do 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 do. Bong. Pretend it's 1 o'clock. That tune is the first symphony of Handel's Messiah. Now if you look to the right, look at this beautiful view of Parliament here on the riverside and the reflection on the water. You think it's so pretty here at night on Westminster Bridge. Westminster Bridge dates from 1862. For London Eye needs no introduction. It's nearly 25 years old now, and it's still London's most popular tourist attraction. And then this is County Hall here, which used to be the local government building for London, and is now full of attractions like the London Dungeons and the Sea Life London Aquarium. Well, we were certainly lucky with the traffic this evening, everybody. Now, when we get back to the Belvedere Road, I'd ask you to please all remain seated until we park the bus, and we'll turn on the lights up here. Then you know when to come down, just to be safe, okay? So I hope you enjoyed the tour, everybody. If you'd like to show your appreciation, gratuities are very gratefully received in any currency, and I will share any cash tips with our wonderful driver if you fancy putting something in the hat as you say goodbye. I've also got these little cards on me that remind you on one side that I'm called Emma, and every time one of you total legends does me a TripAdvisor or Google review, my boss gives me a £10 tip. And it means so much to me, and it's so nice to me to read the reviews. It really motivates me to come to work. And I even email the best reviews over to my mummy in Ireland and my auntie in Canada. I do. So I hope you enjoyed seeing the Christmas lights and learning a bit more about London's history. I'd like to wish you all a very, very Merry Christmas. I'll see you downstairs. Thank you very much and good evening. Thank you.